Amazing. So let's get into it. Now, we are here to talk about why we need to prepare our partners for birth and how we prepare our partners for a natural birth experience for you. Now, when it comes to birth preparation, most of us know that here at Natural Birth Co, we focus on three main aspects. So, the physical preparation of the mother, the mental preparation of the mother, those two topics we've already talked about in the previous weeks. And then the third and final aspect is preparation of the partner for birth. We put a massive emphasis on the preparation of the partner for birth. And this is for a bunch of reasons, but and you know what? I'm not going to give you the exact stat because I'm not going to lie because I literally couldn't find it today. But I know that I've heard somewhere along the line somewhere that when you have a supportive birth partner that is what we would call successful at supporting you through birth, you are about 75% more likely to have a natural birth experience. And I just thought those stats were freaking incredible. Like, that is just such a great reason such a great reason to get your partner to prepare for birth. That's such a great step to communicate with them that it's like, look, the birth of our child, whether we have a natural birth experience, how I go through birth and how that affects me, how that affects our child is really hugely impactful by you. If you prepare yourself for birth with me, you can be hugely impactful to whether we have a natural birth or not. So I think that can be a really great statistic to explain to them. And I will let you know as soon as I find the actual statistic. But for the sake of today's podcast, we'll go with about 75%. So now, when we talk about preparing your birth partner for birth, here at Natural Birth Co, we really put a main focus on this in the Abbottons Birth Workshop. So we do this for three overarching goals. So they do a bunch of roles throughout birth, but it's to achieve three main goals throughout your natural birth experience. So one, this is getting you to have an empowered birth that you are satisfied with at the end of the day. At the end of the birth, you are empowered and you are satisfied, and we avoid this traumatic birth. Now, this is a topic that I just adore recently. So, to avoid a traumatic birth, to have an empowered birth that you're satisfied with, I feel like we need two main things. So, one is to be the primary decision maker of your birth experience, and two is to be fully prepared in all ways that you can through pregnancy so that you can get through the end of your birth knowing there's absolutely nothing more you could have done. You made all the decisions, you did all the prep, and your birth just went how it had to go. So, with the first point, in regards to being the primary decision maker of your birth, this is where the birth partner comes in super handy. So, when I talk about you being the primary decision maker, I mean both you and your birth partner being the primary decision maker of your birth experience. So we really go on about value-based decision making here at Natural Birth Co, which is where all the decisions throughout your birth are made based upon your values, your individual values, right? So you can have two different couples, which I have had plenty of times before, posed with the exact same question. Do I get induced? Do I not? Do I get that scan? Do I not? Do I do the bloods? Do I not? And they both come up with different results, right? Different answers. Neither are right nor wrong. They are right for them as individual people, okay? So us all individual humans, we have individual values that we have to us, and so does your birth partner. And because, especially if we're talking about a normal husband-wife kind of relationship here, it took half of them to make the baby, so therefore half of them gets to kind of make the decisions as well sometimes. So when we're talking in that circumstance, I think it's important to together have your values together to together make these big decisions. So this is what we call value-based decision making, where we assess what does the healthcare professional recommend us to do. We assess what does our own research recommend us to do. And then we assess our own values, using those two things together, using our own values to make that end decision there. So the partner really is a huge part of being the primary decision maker, especially during the birth experience when you're off in another world. You're not quite able nor wanting to make these big decisions during birth. So when they can help there, that's really amazing to help for this empowered and satisfying birth experience. Sorry, that was such a tangent there, but I just love talking about that topic whenever I get the chance. The second overarching goal is to help you stay in your reptilian brain, right? So we have our frontal lobe, which is where the decision making happens, which is where we analyze things, we put things into a logical scenario, we look at things objectively, we're aware of time. That all happens in our frontal lobe. Now we really want to descend out of this frontal lobe into our reptilian brain during birth. This is where we are intuitive. This is where we have no kind of conception of time. This is where we are in the present moment, okay? So this is really the space that we want to birth in. Now, when we're in our reptilian brain, not only are we able to be intuitive, like I said, we're able to move intuitively. Our body is telling us where to go. Our baby is telling us where to go to create space. We need to lift this leg here to move a certain bone out of the way so baby can nuzzle their last way down, etc. So being intuitive is really important. Also in this reptilian brain, our hormones are able to flow effectively here. So we get an effective flow of oxytocin, which creates really great repetitious continual contractions in a great rhythm that is going to help to send your baby down. We produce beta endorphins, which are great pain relievers. We produce beta endorphins, which also help us get out of our frontal lobe. So if you're not like a pro meditator before birth, you don't have to worry, because the beta endorphins help you so much in getting out of this thinking mind and getting into our reptilian mind. As I said, staying in the reptilian brain will help you cope with pain in labor. Staying in the reptilian brain will help you be in this little time warp experience where you're really present. So a woman who is able to labor continuously in this reptilian brain, and to be completely honest, you're not going to forever stay in this reptilian brain. You're going to come and go. But when you're the majority of the time in this reptilian brain, you are able to kind of like 40 hours, 1 hour, who knows, who cares when you're in this reptilian brain, because time doesn't really exist. You're always just in the present moment. Whereas lots of women, when they're out of this reptilian brain, like, oh my gosh, I've been in labor for 8 hours now. Like, oh, I'm impatient. Oh, this is going too long. Something's wrong. Stress puts all of our hormones out of whack, and that can really lead to a not necessarily great labor experience. Whereas when we're in the present moment in our reptilian mind, if our body is moving intuitively, all the things are happening, and our body just has to experience a 35-hour labor, 40-hour labor, and that's what's natural to us, then being in our reptilian brain is really going to help you get through that longevity of that birth. The last thing is that it helps avoid mental exhaustion. So kind of in regards to all the other stuff too, where if we are out of this reptilian brain, we're aware of time, we're aware of pain, we're aware of, everything going on around us. That is mentally exhausting. Whereas if we're in our present moment and we're just dealing with the contractions, in, out, having nice little rests in between contractions, breathing through the contractions, we're going to have way less mental exhaustion because we're not experiencing stress. Stress, which is going to happen if you're in your frontal lobe, is really exhausting mentally for the mother. So that kind of satisfies that part of staying in your reptilian brain. So this is one of the 3 main overarching goals of your partner being able to support you in labor. Now, the third one is allow your birth to flow efficiently and progressively. So this is something we kind of talk a lot about here at Natural Birth Co., especially when you are birthing in the hospital setting. When you're birthing in the hospital setting, you are on a time limit. We want your baby out. We want you to move through. We want you to move through the process. So here, we really put a main focus on how can we get you to birth in the most efficient and progressive way possible to avoid different interventions, etc., that can pop up if you have a prolonged birth at hospital. Plus, in addition to that, a lot of mamas actually feel, they don't want long labors, which is fair. Labor's a beautiful place to be, but the majority of us don't want to linger in labor too long. So how can we make this efficient and progressive? Your birth partner can really help with this. So firstly, because one, they allow your hormones to flow efficiently. When we have really fantastic hormones flowing efficiently in and out, the hormonal symphony, I think Rhea Dempsey calls it, it creates really effective contractions. Effective contractions allows your baby to move down, 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 down through the pelvis, rather than kind of erratic, frantic, random contractions that sometimes are strong, sometimes are not. Sometimes they're 2 minutes, sometimes they're 30 seconds. That isn't what's going to allow your baby and your labor to progress nice and quickly. Okay. So the hormones flow as nature intended. And the second way that your partner can help birth be progressive is through the physical support. So creating space in the pelvis. And we go into this deeply in our birth workshop in positions with mamas. How the mamas move changes the shape of your pelvis. So we teach the dads how to know where in the pelvis baby is, and then how to create space in that particular plane of the pelvis. That can really help your labor progress efficiently. Which, if you can imagine, if you're in your intuitive mind, you're going to kind of know how to move to create space. But if certain things happen and we're out of our intuitive mind a little bit, and your birth partner is able to pick up a stall in labor, they're able to pick up, okay, this is where baby is. I've noticed that baby's not necessarily moving down. This is how we can create space to let baby move down. Then that's going to allow your labor to be way more progressive than it going 5, 6, 8 hours and then realizing in, say, a vaginal exam or something that baby's not moving down. You just get to avoid all of that by creating space where baby is in the pelvis. So those are the 3 overarching goals. I'm just going to reflect on them because I've been rambling. Love that. Allow your birth to flow effectively and progressively. Stay in your reptilian brain and getting your empowered birth that you're satisfied with, avoiding birth trauma. So they're the 3 overarching goals. Now, we really talk about 6 main roles that the partners can do so effectively during your birth experience, right? And these 6 roles are all with the intent to achieve one of those 3 goals, right? And you'll kind of see how that comes to fruition throughout this live. And I just want to mention, how beautiful this experience can be. So, you're having a baby with someone, and majority of the time it's your partner, but if it's your mum or someone, then that's amazing too. But for anyone who is your birth partner, them being there for you and being able to support you emotionally, advocate for you, be there for you in so many ways that we're about to talk about, is just the most connecting and beautiful experience. It's just so wonderful for the mother, you in the most vulnerable time of life, to be so supported by this person. It creates a interesting bond between you two that is really hard to get otherwise. So I've had heaps of mamas where, them and their partners' relationships just moves to a whole new level once they're so beautifully supported by their partner, and their partners put in the effort, put in the time, both in pregnancy and in birth. And, mamas who, their mums have been there as well. And it's just this really beautiful, especially amongst females, this really beautiful bonding experience with you and your birth support person. So if you can get them really doing these roles, it can really help take whatever relationship it is for you to that next level of connection. It's really amazing. And I feel super lucky. I feel like that's what we get as midwives, especially if we know you guys in pregnancy, but even if not, it's just this really amazing, wild connection that you build with someone over the space of 20 hours. And really, if you just chatted with someone for 20 hours, you would get somewhat of a connection, but this is just totally different stuff we're talking about. So anyways, 6 main roles that I encourage birth partners to do during labor. So the first one is set and protect the birth space. Protect being a key word there. So their job is to set up the birth space at home and set up the birth space in the hospital. and protect it. By protecting it, what I mean is that if you have your birth space laid out and then someone comes in and turns a light on, you protect that space and you say, turn the fucking lights off, right? If you say, you have this beautiful, quiet, ambient space and someone walks in and starts giving handover in the room or making small talk about your work or something, like, tell them no conversations in the birth space. This is a really sacred space and you need to protect that space, okay? So set and protect the birth space. So this birth space needs to allow mama to feel safe, undisturbed, and unobserved. Okay, this is really important for all the hormones and stuff to work during birth. Setting and protecting the birth space allows mama to stay in her reptilian mind, right? If people are coming in and having a chat or doing handover saying, how her labor is progressing, that is going to bring her so far out of her reptilian brain into a logical mind and create lots of stress. We don't want that in the birth space. This is going to allow her hormones to flow effectively when she's in that reptilian brain, when she's feeling safe, undisturbed, unobserved. The hormones are going to flow really well. We brainstorm a lot. Actually, we'll talk about that later. Support you emotionally. Second role for the birth partner to do in labor is to support you emotionally. So this helps you stay in your reptilian brain. Mama knows what to do. And this is something that I always say as a go-to to my dads or birth partners in the birth workshop, is to, if ever you're in doubt, do what you need to get her into her reptilian brain. Get mama into her intuitive brain, because you know when you're on your intuitive brain how to move, how to breathe, what to do to stay calm. You know what to do. It's keeping you in that zone that is key. So if ever you're in doubt, if ever you don't know what to do as like the birth partner, get your woman in the reptilian brain, because she knows what to do. Mamas, you've been birthing for years and years and years and years. Obviously the entire time humans have been around. You know so instinctively what to do. We just need to stay there. We just need to stay in our reptilian mind. Supporting you emotionally, helps you stay in your reptilian brain. Mama knows what to do. Stimulate oxytocin, which is love and connection. So oxytocin, which is that contraction hormone that I talk about. Oxytocin is a love and connection hormone, right? So mama needs to be feeling loved and connected to be able to have effective contractions, right? As soon as she's feeling unsafe, disturbed, and observed, she'll spike adrenaline and those contractions will plummet, okay? So stimulate oxytocin is a part of supporting you emotionally. We go through there are so many techniques that birth partners can do to stimulate oxytocin in the mama. Supporting you emotionally includes making you feel safe, helping you with your breathing, and knowing techniques to support you when you are pushed past your edge of tolerance. I love talking about the edge of tolerance. To bring you back into your reptilian state. Okay, so when we talk about pushing past the edge of tolerance, it's almost inevitable to happen. It is inevitable to happen. This is the point where birth becomes too much. This is the point where birth becomes so overwhelming. You really want to tap out. The contraction is too much. You need a breather. You need a break, and then you can keep going. You just want to rest, and you can't. That's your edge of tolerance. When you get pushed past that edge of tolerance, what happens? Your birth partner needs to know what happens and how to support you to bring you back into your reptilian mind, right? That is one of the 3 reasons that I talk about will make you tap out of the birth that you want, which may be a natural birth experience, to a birth that you don't want, which is maybe an epidural or a cesarean section. And not that there's anything wrong with those things, it's just not what you wanted. And getting pushed past that edge of tolerance and not being able to cope with that is going to be one of the 3 reasons that makes you tap out. As a little side note, the 2 other reasons is physical exhaustion, mental exhaustion, right? These are 3 factors that we really need to account for and prepare for during pregnancy for that birth experience. Okay, so that's the second role, support you emotionally in labor. Third role is to support you physically in labor. So I mean, really tangible things here. I mean, massage, strong massage of the hips, strong massage of the sacrum, right? I mean, nice little tickle massages. So, nice little back tickles, head tickles, nice little fluid retention tickles, that sort of thing. That's that physical support. So, not only is that going to create space in the pelvis, that's going to stimulate oxytocin, that's going to make the mama feel safe and cared for. So that's support physically. The second component of supporting physically is position. So this is what I talk about, where knowing where baby is in the pelvis and knowing how to create space through mama's positions, and birth partner knowing what these positions are, how to recognize the stall, how to recognize where baby is in the pelvis, and how we're going to create space so baby can move past this obstacle in the pelvis, is part of that physical support during labor. So that's a really important role for the partners. Fourth role for the partners, birth partners, is advocating for you. Now, advocating for you is huge in the sense of making you feel safe, right? So if you as a mama know what you want for your birth experience, right? Let's say as an example, you know you don't want a vaginal exam during labor, or like there's very specific circumstances that you're okay to have a vaginal exam, right? And you go into hospital, straight away they're like, all right, gal, jump on the bed, let's do a vaginal exam, see where you're at, right? And it's said very casually, it's said as if there's no question, there's no consent required, it's just kind of like what you do, right? And in your head as a birthing woman, you're like, oh, fuck, I don't want vaginal exams. Imagine if in that space, which you can't even imagine unless you've had a baby, if you're in that space of birth where your mind's just mush, you can't really articulate what you want to say, you don't have the energy to argue or to discuss or to anything like that, and if you do, it's going to bring you into your logical mind, frontal lobe. When you have your birth partner that knows, oh, she doesn't want vaginal exams. Oh, actually, by the way, we're not doing vaginal exams unless these reasons that are on your birth plan, which we'll talk about later. So don't worry about it. And meanwhile, you're just doing your fucking thing. You're in the corner. You're in a dark corner doing your thing. You're being intuitive, and you're not even having to worry or think about that. And you've got the beautiful safety net of your birth partner who knows exactly what you want and when you want it, and they're advocating for you. That makes you feel safe. That is so connecting for the two of you. That really helps you stay in your reptilian mind, out of your frontal lobe, right? Imagine if you're having to discern with this midwife about why you don't want vaginal exams, when you're willing to have them, when you're not willing to have them. And then, you might get a bit of pushback just because that's what they've been taught. And then, you're having to kind of explain yourself. That is nothing conducive towards a natural labor in that conversation. That's going to create massive impact to your birth, just that one conversation. Whereas you imagine, for all the tiny little preferences that you have for your birth, having to have that conversation 10 times throughout your labor, that's just going to be a fucking shit show, to be honest. So having someone to advocate for you for exactly what you want is amazing. So amazing. This also helps keep your birth on track. So honestly, even if you did try to have these conversations, as a birthing woman, your mind isn't working the same. Your mind just isn't working the same. The hormones are all funny. You're not able to properly articulate and explain yourself. You're way more easily kind of persuaded that it's easy to kind of find yourself in this situation in birth and be like, whoa, how the fuck did I get here? All of a sudden I'm strapped to a bed. I've got these monitors on. I've got an epidural. Like, whoa, what kind of happened here? Right? So the birth partner can really help keep your birth on track, right? Because they're aware, they're in their frontal lobe, they're analyzing everything, they're deciding lots of things, and they have the full capacity of their brain to be able to do that. Whereas you don't have the full capacity of your brain as a laboring woman, and that's okay. That's how it's meant to be, right? So it helps keep your birth on track to the type of birth you want. This helps you avoid what we call the cascade of intervention. So we won't go too deeply into this today, but essentially the cascade of intervention is when you kind of say yes to one intervention And then all of a sudden that leads to another, and then another, and then another, and then another. Oh, because you had this, you have to have that. Because you had this, you have to have that. Blah, 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 blah. This is really common in hospitals, is to get kind of caught up in this cascade intervention. And what I said before about you kind of end up in this result of like, how the fuck did I even get here? Is a very common feeling to have at the end of that cascade of intervention. And then that can be really quite conducive towards, you know, a bit of postnatal depression and stuff like that, because it wasn't kind of really aware decisions that were being made. It wasn't very intentional to what you wanted. You just kind of got steamrolled along this process. And then you're like, I didn't choose fucking any of that, really knowing what I was agreeing to. So that's like, yeah, massive. That's massive. And that is a really huge goal in Natural Birth Co. is to help you guys educate yourselves to not get taken along for that cascade of intervention. And if you choose individually at each step, yes, I do want that intervention. Yes, I do want that intervention. Yes, I do want that intervention. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's when you don't really truly understand what you're saying yes to that can leave you feeling a little bit disheartened and upset at the end of your birth experience. So having a great birth partner can really help stop that cascade of intervention. Like literally put a fucking thing in it so that you can just pick and choose the intervention that you want and that you don't want. So have a birth that is aligned with your individual values based on your decision-making process, which kind of goes into that exactly what I just talked about. It's just having a birth that is aligned with exactly what you want and what you value as an individual, okay? Now the next one, the second last role for the birth partner, which again kind of goes into the advocation, but they make decisions, right? They make decisions. And we're going to go deep into this in our next section where we're going to talk about some practical tools that you guys can do together. But make decisions to keep you in your reptilian brain for one. Keeps birth on track for your value-centered birth experience that you're after. You guys can, before birth, ballpark different scenarios so that when you're in birth, you know, there's so many different ways that your birth could go, right? So many different ways, so many different decisions that can randomly pop up, right? That you may not have distinctly said in your birth preferences checklist or birth plan or whatever you call it. So having these conversations with your birth partner during pregnancy to be like, oh, I heard about this story today in pregnancy yoga. One of the mamas had her first birth go like this. If that was me, I would probably like to do it in this way. And you have these sort of conversations and let them tangent into all these different areas so that you guys can together get your head around potential things that might pop up. And then your birth partner can get their head around what you like in different scenarios. So this is going to really help them when it comes to little decisions that you haven't specifically said in your birth plan. This is going to really help them get that confidence to know what you want in birth. So little decisions, they're not having to go to you during birth for every tiny little thing. They can just call it, no, I know she's not going to want that. No, I know she's going to want to try this before she tries that. You just know because you've talked about it and you've tangented and you've given lots of different examples. And both after our yoga, like when the mamas all chat afterwards with couples, and the mamas will often tell me how they go back and talk to their birth partners about different scenarios that, you know, the second time mamas may have spoke about, or different things they may have heard of and how they want that to go down. And especially the birth workshop, like, wow, that just induces so much conversations and potential tangents to go down to talk about what each individual one of you would like in certain scenarios. And like, because obviously we cover so much in the birth workshop that you know, afterwards they're kind of like, oh, how was that Amy said about the fetal scalp electrode? Like, what do you think about that? And then they kind of delve into that, and they delve into all these little bits and pieces, receiving all the information to create their own opinions and decisions based on your own values, right? Not on mine, not on the hospital's, not on anyone else's, but your own, okay? So honestly, I think that summarizes the decision making. And And last role, but not least, is that we enhance the natural process of birth, both hormonally and physically, to allow labor to progress efficiently. And I won't go too deeply into this because we talked about it before, but essentially, if your birth partner knows how to create space in the pelvis for baby to be able to descend efficiently, right? And they can also help with your hormonal symphony to just be in the natural flow and protect that hormonal symphony, your labor is going to be as progressive and efficient as it can possibly be. All right? That and a little bit of body balancing in the mix. So, allowing the hormonal symphony to run efficiently helps mama to stay calm, stimulate oxytocin and contractions and progressions and pain relief. Really, really effective here. Now, I wanted to give you guys some practical tools to take to your birth partner to figure out exactly what you want to do. Okay, so I've got 5 points here. So 1, brainstorm your birth environment. I want you guys together, you can think about what would make me feel safe, undisturbed, and unobserved, both at home and in the hospital, okay? Whatever environment you have at home, take it into the hospital, except for real candles with real flames. You can take the little LED ones in. But even think about when you're at home, like, do you live kind of, you want to say for example, you want to labor in the lounge room and there's a big window where it goes to the front yard and there's like a footpath or something there. Like, that might be something you'll foresee. Okay, let's close those curtains or do something so that I can feel unobserved and undisturbed. If you're laboring and you're moaning and you're making all these noises, you don't want like kids and stuff walking past out the front, for sure. So kind of foresee those potential things that are going to impact your birth environment. What's going to make you feel safe, undisturbed, and unobserved? So for example, like TV, do you want that off? Is that a thing that you don't want? Things like lighting, things like what you can smell, things like what you can hear. All these things, kind of have that all sorted for your home environment and at the hospital. Think about things like where you, like, say if you want to try the shower at home, like where's going to be the most effective place for you to set up with your birth ball that you have plenty of space to use it, all that sort of stuff. So brainstorm that and discuss it with your birth partner. Have all the shit ready. Teach them how to use the diffuser so that you don't have to teach them when you're in labor. You know, tell them what lighting that you want. Tell them, you know, the setup that you want to have during your birth at home and at the hospital. Let them know, okay, when we go from home to hospital, you need to pack these things. And better yet, write a list and put it at the top of the bag so that they can check it, because it's stressful. They're going to forget something for sure. Cool. Brainstorm your birth environment with them and talk about it. Second thing is a birth preference checklist together. Now, I'm going to pop a link here. We actually have a free one that you can use, and it's got like an example checklist and then one you can fill out on your own. Have your birth preference checklist and have them super clear on exactly what everything means, okay? Exactly what everything means, right? We actually go through this birth preference checklist in our birth workshop together with the mum and dad together. As we talk about something, it's like, oh yeah, we like that, we don't like that. They write it down. They're both on the same page. They both know exactly what they're talking about, right? Another thing is workshop different scenarios together for decision making. So as I was talking about after yoga in the workshop, our natural birth co-mamas will go back and talk about this stuff with their partners. They'll talk about their decision-making process. So bring up different, you know, say if you listen to a podcast, we have heaps of birth story podcasts on our podcast, Natural Birth Co, wherever you listen to your podcasts on, and you can hear lots of examples and be like, oh yeah, I like how she did that, or I don't like how she did that, or you might hear her lesson that she learned from, you know, a potentially negative experience that she's like, oh yeah, I would do that differently next time. And then you don't have to go through that again. You can learn from her mistake and fucking do that. Or not, because it might be a mistake for her, but it might not be a mistake for you based on your different values, right? So workshop different scenarios together with your birth partner to get really clear and to help them get a really great idea on what type of birth you want. And two really great points that we actually go through in the birth workshop that I really encourage you to go through with your birth partner. I know the mums and dads both find a lot of comfort in having these 2 points really clearly explained between the two of them. They're both completely on the same page. So, one, pain relief options. What pain relief options are you willing to use, and when, and under what circumstances? Okay. So first of all, like we kind of talk about here at Natural Birth Co, using one pain relief tool, and then you've got all these tools in your tool belt. You use one, and then when you're at your wit's end, you pick up another one. You're at your wit's end, you pick up another one, right? If you're going for a natural birth, the epidural will be the absolute last thing on that pain tool belt, right? So you've used, fucking 12 tools, maybe 1 hour each before you even go for the epidural, right? So hopefully by then, your labor's done, your baby's in your arms, and you're like, I still had 3 tools left in my belt. Like, that's the idea. So you might have all these different tools in your tool belt. Have them understand what tools you're willing to use and when. And a really great example of this is even recently, so one of our pregnant mamas that came and did the birth workshop with her partner, and she did pregnancy yoga. She's come back recently for her first class back of Mums and Bubs. Love that. It's always the best, like hearing the story and meeting Bubba and all that sort of stuff. So she came back and she was talking about her birth experience, of course, and she was talking about how her partner, when she was having a really hard time in birth and she was feeling lots of back pain, she was feeling at a real wit's end, her partner knew the birth plan, that it was going to be a natural birth. He knew different options of pain relief she was willing to try, including the sterile water for injection. He knew from our birth workshop that that was for back pain. He said in her time of need, hey, do you want to try the sterile water for injections in your back? I think it would be a good idea. So short and sweet, to the point, not fluffing about, just fucking said what he had to say, because she's not going to think of that in that headspace. She's not going to think of that in that headspace. He said that to her. She said, yeah. He said to the midwives, look, can we try the sterile water for injections? He knew it was a good time. He knew it was good for the type of pain and the overwhelm that she was experiencing. She had them. She said they hurt like a bitch, but heck, they worked really, really well. They were so effective for her back pain. She said her back pain just left. All of a sudden, it was only the pains at the front, which was like barely anything in comparison to the back pain she was feeling. And I just thought that was a perfect example of them utilizing this tool belt technique to really understand what she needed at that time and what she would have wanted without, her having to say. Like, so good. So good, so good. So, so that's the pain relief options you're happy with. Figure out when she's happy with them and under what circumstance. Okay, now this kind of leads into the next one, which at this point, she's happy to have the epidural, okay? Everyone's point is going to be different, all right? So some people are dead set, I do not want the epidural. I only want it if I've been in active labor for 24 hours and I'm still maybe, in the mid pelvis, or I'm at 4 centimeters or something like that. Some women may say, okay, if I ask for it 3 times in between contractions, then I'm happy for me to have the epidural, right? They're 2 totally different scenarios. One's not right nor wrong. It's just different desires for the birth, okay? So get super clear yourself on, okay, at what point would I be happy with myself getting the epidural? Right here, right now, in my logical mind, right? At what point would I be happy getting the epidural? This is a comparison I often say, which is like, you imagine you're, I hate to use the word diet because I actually don't really believe in diets, but say if you're wanting to just eat nutritionally, eat healthy, right? And then you have a pretty hectic sugar addiction, okay? And someone's dabbling like chocolate right in front of you, being like, come on, like, are you sure you don't want it? This will just make you feel so much better. Why are you putting yourself through the craving? Just let yourself have the chocolate. And then you have the chocolate, but then you're upset with yourself for it, right? Whereas if you've got someone in your corner that's not letting anyone dangle it in front of you, not letting one even talk about it, and they know, okay, you are happy to have that piece of chocolate on a Sunday night with a cup of tea while you're fucking reading a book or something, then that's cool. They're in your corner, and if you ask for that chocolate on the Sunday night, yeah, cool. They give that to you, and you can be proud of yourself in being like, yeah, I'm able to have this because this is the time that I allocated to myself. But then if I have it sooner, and then afterwards I'm upset with myself for having the chocolate, then, you know, that's not fucking good for anyone. So, yeah, anyways, that was a bit of a fucking random tangent explanation, but I feel like you're going to pick up what I'm putting down and saying that. So, anyways, that's exactly how we prepare the birth partner, why we prepare the birth partner, why it's so important. If you're interested in getting you and your partner prepared for birth, you can always hit me up. We do this in our Appetence Birth Workshop. We have the option both online and in person in Maroochydore or on the Sunshine Coast. So wherever you are, you can always make a birth workshop happen. Thank you so much for popping on. Talk to you later.